Hi everyone, I'm David Addison and I'm taking over from Emil to give you a guided tour of the iPhone's camera app. I'm just here to familiarise you with where everything is so that when myself or another instructor further on in the course uses a function or a feature, you know where it is. Now, I am using a tripod and a phone holder. You don't need either of those things to do iPhone photography or to follow along with this video. I'm simply using it for sake of ease. So I'm not holding the phone this whole video and it's shaking around. So it's better for your viewing experience as well. Now, if you are curious, this is a Manfrotto Compact MKC3-H01. That is an extremely catchy name. I'm sure that has gone into memory immediately. This phone holder is a Grip Type Pro 2 from Joby, but of course there's many tripods and phone holders available. These are just two that I happen to like and use. Now, I am using an iPhone 15 Pro Max, and you don't need the latest and greatest iPhone to follow along with this video, because this may have some settings and functions and features that you don't have on your iPhone. But don't worry, because I took these photos with an original iPhone SE. It's far more important that you understand framing, how to frame your shot, and lighting over any setting or function or feature in the camera app. The original SE hasn't got half the functionality of this iPhone 15 Pro Max, and you'll be learning all about how to frame and lighting further on down the course. So let's jump into the iPhone 15 Pro Max's camera app, starting with this big white circular button here. It's a very important button. It's called the shutter button, and it's what you press mainly to take photos. So just press that and the photo is captured. But notice how gently I press it. I'm going to advise that you just tap it, just caress the shutter button, and the iPhone will respond. Don't jam your finger into it like that. It's not necessary. And you introduce camera shake as well, which you can blur your photos. So just nice and gentle. Up here, we have our preview in this little rounded rectangle here. This is the last few photos that you've taken. In fact, you could keep scrolling through all your photos if you wanted, but just so you can check what you've captured is okay, you can zoom in, make sure everything's what you wanted, and you can edit your photos here as well. You can go back like that, or you can swipe down and go back like that as well. Now, there's a little circular arrow button down at the bottom here. This is your selfie switcher, so you should see me. Hello everyone, here we are. Tap that. So that switches between the back cameras on your iPhone and the front camera, which on the later models is hidden over here. So you can't see it, but we know that that is the camera that we are in. Now, speaking of the back cameras, your iPhone, this 15 Pro Max, has lots of different options for different lenses, different amounts of zoom, different frames and things like that. So I'm going to go through them with you now, starting with this 0.5. So this refers to the ultra-wide lens. You can see immediately we get a much broader field of view, a much broader frame with the 0.5 times lens. You'll hear this called the ultra-wide, and this is also the lens that has the macro capabilities, which we'll go into later on in the course. Now we have the main camera, the 1 times lens, otherwise known as the wide lens or the 1x lens. Now this lens is hiding some secrets. There are some hidden lenses within this lens, because you may have noticed that this iPhone has 3 cameras on the back, but we've got 4 here. In fact, there's 7 on the 15 Pro Max. You access those by just tapping 1x again. You can see 1.2, 1.5. So now we get a slightly different frame. So in this example, I can use that to just crop out those small bollards there, get a different frame. Those are digital lenses, and those work by using the 1x camera and just punching in. So it uses part of the image sensor of the 1x camera to give you that zoomed in look. And the 2x works in the exact same way. So those are all your digital lenses. Now we've got one more optical, one more physical lens, which is this 5x. And unless you have 15 Pro Max, you will see some different numbers here, but they generally do the same thing so far as this is going to be your widest option, this will be the midpoint, and then this will be your telephoto. Telephoto meaning like really long zoom. And you might see 3x, 2x, something like that, but they do the same thing as what mine does. And you can also tap and hold and zoom like this as well. So those are your camera and lens options. Now next to those, we have your camera modes. So we are now in photo mode, which is the default camera mode. This is where we'll be spending the vast majority of our time. It's where all your camera features and settings are for the most part. Now above that here, we have video mode, and I can tap it to switch to it, or I can swipe like this. So video mode, then we have cinematic, slow-mo and time-lapse, and I'm breezing through those because this is iPhone Photo Academy. I don't want to be spending too much time on video stuff. What I'm much more interested in is the photo functionality, which is down here. So we have portrait. Now this is the mode that you use to take stunning portraits of people. It also works with pets and objects, and what it does is it applies a blur effect live in the photo that you can adjust later. You can adjust the lighting, which isn't going to work here because we don't have a subject in front of us, but there will be a video all about portrait mode coming up. And finally, we have pano. Pano is short for panorama, and this arrow gives you a clue as to what to do, and you get some instructions on the screen there. Again, full episode on panorama coming up, where you move the phone and you capture a frame that is just impossible to capture in a single image. Panorama lets you stitch images together across the whole scene. They're stunning, you're gonna love it. Now let's go back to the photo mode and carry on our tour. So over here, we have this lightning bolt icon, which is the flash icon. Now when you see the lightning bolt like this, it doesn't mean that the flash is on, it's on auto. When it goes yellow, it's on. I'll turn it on in a minute so you know what that looks like. So I can tap it, turn it off. Tap it again, it's on auto. And what auto means is the iPhone's gonna decide when it thinks the flash should come on. And it's gonna do everything in its power to not bring the flash on, because it doesn't really look very good. Even on the latest and greatest iPhones, it's not great. Now, you may want to use it if you're in a bar or a nightclub or something like that, and there is no other option. Turn the flash on, it might give you good results, but I'm gonna try and avoid it as much as I can. And you can see, even when I take a photo, the flash didn't fire, because it doesn't need to. Now, this little green dot here, this is a privacy setting. This is built into the iPhone. You can't turn this off. This lets you know when the camera is in use. So if you don't have the camera up like I do, and you see the green dot, something's using your camera. What's going on? But now, obviously, I'm in the camera app. That makes sense to have that little green dot. And finally, down here on this side, we have live photos. Now, live photos are fun little videos that you get along with your photos. They come with audio as well. They're brilliant. And you can go in later, select your frame. You can watch a short little clip back of the moment. They're really, really fun. I'm gonna go into them in a lot more detail a little bit later on. And just like with the flash, this is auto. So live photos is now off, and live auto. The difference is that when live photos are on auto, they always seem to be on. Whenever live photos is on auto and I take a picture, I always seem to get a live photo. And it's even recording the live photo now, because the video starts from even before you press the shutter. Now, one last thing over on this side is the hidden menu, waiting patiently for me to show you it. And if I tap this arrow, you see the hidden menu reveals itself. I can also swipe right on the screen like that to open it, swipe left to close it again. So let's open it and see what is inside. So we have the flash setting over here. You can confirm that flash is on auto. We've got on and off. So if I turn the flash on, you can see now it turns yellow. And that confirms that this is active. And this is part of the design language of the iPhone that it uses to help you keep track of where you're up to, what you've got turned on and things like that. That becomes very, very helpful a little bit later on with a few more of these functions, as I'll show you. So the hidden menu is open, so it is yellow. We are in the 1x camera, it's yellow. You get the idea. So now when I press to take a photo, you can see the flash fires. Cool, so I'm gonna put it back on auto. I don't need you on. Same thing with live photos, we have live auto and on, which again, I have never found any sort of difference between on and auto. So I'm gonna leave it on auto, like that. Next, we have photographic styles. And photographic styles applies a filter or a style, as the name suggests, to your photos. And these are very, very subtle. What the iPhone's doing here is it's looking at the frame, it's analyzing it, and it's applying an intelligent amount of adjustments to your frame. So we've got warm, we've got vibrant, we've got cool, and there are some sliders here that I can adjust. So I can, let's go on to the warm one, and I can make warm not so warm. I can make it cool. I can make it really cool. And you'll have a look down here at this icon on the right hand side. As I make it cooler, the photographic styles icon that has now appeared goes red, it goes blue as I make it cooler. Very, very cool. So this icon is now going to stay here as long as I've got a photographic style applied. So if I go on tone, you'll see the line, those dotted lines actually fill up. Again, just to give you a reminder of what you've got going on, because photographic styles are that subtle, you can often forget that you actually got one applied. But just keep in mind with photographic styles that once you apply one, you can't remove it later. That is it. It is baked in to your photo, unlike filters, which I'll show you in just a minute. So that is photographic styles. And I can also reset my photographic style by coming up to this circular arrow and tapping reset. I will just reset it, so how I had it, and carry on. So tap here to get out of photographic styles, and then we can move on to aspect ratio. And aspect ratio is the size of your frame. So we have 4, which is the longest part of the frame, by 3, the shortest part, and it'll always be that relationship. So we've got square, which is 1 by 1, and these aren't in millimeters or centimeters or inches, it is just a ratio. So 16 by 9, for example, isn't bigger than 4 by 3, just a different ratio to each other. You'll see 16 by 9 here looks like a video frame. It looks like I've actually got more, I've got a wider frame, but I've actually not. It's just digitally altering the frame for me. It's actually using only part now of the full sensor to give me that view. But unlike photographic styles, I can actually revert back to 4 by 3 later. Because regardless of which aspect ratio I choose, if I choose 16 by 9, it's not actually capturing just 16 by 9, it's capturing the full sensor and just cropping it. So don't worry if you accidentally leave it in 1 by 1 or 16 by 9 and you're like, no, I wanted more. It's there for you. So that is aspect ratios. And over here we have exposure. Exposure is a photography term to mean dark and light. So we can bring it down with the slider, darker, -2, or lighter, +1.7, whatever we want. And we also get this cool meter over here. When you see a line like this in photography, it's called a meter. And it's very cool how you get one included there. Again, just to give you a reminder, because it can be very subtle. If you have 0.3, it can look very similar to as if you've not adjusted it at all. So it's just going to stay there as a reminder for you. If I tap the icon again, I get back to the hidden menu. Let's keep going. This is the timer. So we have 3 seconds. Again, it's going to show up down here. And we have 10 seconds. So if you want to run into the frame, if you're taking a picture with a group or even by yourself, this is what you could use. So 3 seconds could be to eliminate any sort of camera shake. If I tap that, by the time the camera has taken the photo, the phone has stopped shaking. So that's what you could use 3 seconds for. And 10 seconds again if you want to run into the frame. And you can see, actually gives me a little countdown here, and you can see the light flashing on the front of the iPhone to let you know when the photo is actually taken when you're in front of the camera. Apple know that's what you're probably going to use this feature for. Now finally, we have these 3 overlapping circles, and these are your filters. These are much more obvious than your photographic styles. These are like traditional filters that you might apply to a photo later. So I've got a photographic style and a filter on at the moment. I've got dramatic, which they seem to be working quite well together. Dramatic warm, dramatic cool, you get the idea. Mono. But unlike photographic styles, you can actually revert these back later. You can remove them if you don't want it. So let me show you what that looks like. If I tap to take this photo, the timer is still on, 3, 2, 1, there we go. Here's that photo. I can come to edit, and I can actually come over here. I can apply a filter later as well, and I can revert the photo back to its original form. So that's really helpful. So don't worry, if you leave a filter on and you decide that you don't want it, it's not a problem. Right, that is everything that we can see on the iPhone's camera app. You can see things have gotten quite complex here with all these icons spewed all over the screen. I'm gonna come through and reset each one. It's not a problem. Very, very easy to go back to the way we had things and clean things up and close the hidden menu. Well, that's not all. There's a couple of more things that I want to tell you about. Now, these are things that only activate in certain circumstances, and one of them is night mode. So night mode is a low light mode, and it's the iPhone helping you out when it thinks there's not enough light around. And you may have come across it as you're trying to follow along here and wonder what it is. So you'll see the icon appear here next to the flash, and you'll see it in the hidden menu again next to the flash. Now I can't turn on night mode. I can't force it to come on in this situation because there's too much light around for night mode. It's an automatic mode. We've got a full video coming up where we do low light photography. So stick around for that if you're curious about night mode. Another one is watch what happens when I tap to focus here. Now on the 15 Pro Max, we have the Portraits in Photo mode feature. Again, this might not happen for you on your iPhone, but don't worry. It is a mode that allows you to switch automatically between a portrait photo and a regular photo. So when I tapped to focus, this F came up here. Nothing's going to happen at the moment because there's no subject for me. I don't have a dog, a cat, a person, or an object or anything like that. And if I did, you would see that artificial blur gets applied that I can remove later and choose between a portrait mode photo and a regular photo. Again, full episode on this coming up later on. Finally, watch what happens when I bring my hand close to the frame. You see that flower icon here? This is the iPhone automatically switching between the regular camera and the macro camera. So it's doing me a favor. When it automatically detects that something is close and I might want to take a macro photo, it's going to switch automatically. And you can turn this off just like that, but more on this when we cover macro photography further on in the course. Now there's one more thing. You've done so well to get to this point because it is a lot. And we're not expecting you to be experts right off the bat immediately. What I recommend you do is familiarize yourself with everything, go through it, turn things on, turn things off, just get used to it so that when you see myself or another instructor later on using a certain function, you're more familiar with where it is and what it's for. And that one other thing I mentioned is the image format switcher. So the iPhone will allow you to shoot in different image formats. And what that means is you get different types of images. Well, this needs to be turned on in the settings. It just so happens that settings is the next episode. So I will see you in that one where I show you how to turn on the image format switcher and go through all of the iPhone's camera settings. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
This video was a free preview of my iPhone Photo Academy online course. In this course, you'll discover everything you need to know to take stunning photos with your iPhone. So if you'd like to take the kind of photos that will leave your friends and family speechless, please take a look at the full version of iPhone Photo Academy. You'll find a link in the description right next to this video, so click on that link right now, and I'll see you inside the full version of the course.